talking fast at the beginning of a podcast. My guest today.
Easy there, Boomhauer.
Man, like I'm telling him what, man, like dang old Hank was like. So my guest today, welcome to the Rubecast. Has it been 2 weeks? I can't remember. So much going on. So much. We make hay while the sun is shining, don't we, Jared?
And it is haying season.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really fun. So my guest today is the venerable Jared Hartley. He is a parts manager at Frontline Ag Solutions in Belgrande, Montagnier.
Yes, sir.
And he is a worship leader at Bozeman Christian Reformed Church. He is a weed control expert. He is a dog owner.
Dog pops, dog, whatever you want to call it.
Pass navigator.
Yeah, I do that every day, too.
Yeah. Jared has to drive the Bozeman Pass every day. And yes. Abby. Do you guys ride together?
We usually try to carpool at least 2 or 3 times a week when we can.
Yeah.
Actually saves more than we thought it would on fuel.
Oh, yeah. Chevy Colorado enthusiast.
Yeah, we have 2 of them. We better be.
Well, they're both diesels, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, we're going to get in the weeds on a lot of stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
What we started, yes, I have nicotine. It's 3 milligrams, keeps me off the cigs. Okay, so we were talking about being introverts. It's always kind of interesting because, how do I say this? Usually, like you said a few weeks ago or days or whatever, what are we going to talk about? I said, I don't know, something will come up.
Something will pop up.
Well, and then you'd said, like, you heard a couple episodes and you go, I have brother stories. And I said, well, maybe we can talk about all kinds of stuff, being a parts manager. But anyway, working with people. So at your job.
Yep.
What are you doing?
All day, every day. Yeah. I babysit parts. I babysit employees. I sell parts. I spent probably... Gosh, it was a month shy of 20 years on the counter before I became the manager. And that's actually one of the things that I miss is helping people. That was why I got into the job to begin with.
So then you were just a parts sales guy, kind of. Well, customer service.
Customer service.
How would you explain?
You can call it that.
So growing up on a farm like I did, and you grew up in farm country, right? Yeah. How do you explain to like a town person? Because for us, growing up on a farm, the parts guy is the guy.
Yeah. If you've got a parts guy who knows what they're doing, they're priceless.
Yeah.
Because I tell people I spent 20 years training myself to remember part numbers. And my employees are shocked when it's like, oh, what's this bearing for a John Deere Moco? Oh, it's an AFH 202-580. How do you remember that? How do you remember that?
My dad,
I just do.
If he listens to this, he's going to be, whoa, he's going to switch to John Deere. So many things. Well, because that was, even for us, when you're on a farm and you're farming, stuff breaks.
It does. It happens.
A lot. And it always seems to break when you need it the most.
Yep.
You never break down.
Why does the swather never break in the middle of winter?
Yeah. Yeah, just I guess because you're not. Whenever you turn it on and you start it up and you're using it. But, and it's interesting because working with farmers is probably kind of like herding cats.
In a manner of speaking, yes. We do our best to try to make sure that guys are taken care of. I had a manager. It was actually the owner at one point. He's not the owner now. It's a conglomerate, not a conglomerate. It's an ownership group of Frontline Ag. But one of the owners told me at one point that a well-run business is like a 3-legged stool. The business is one leg, the employee is the other leg, and the customer on the other side of the counter is the third leg. Yeah. And if any one of those legs gets too long or too short, the stool falls over and the business fails.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there between, taking care of your employees take care of your customers. So that's what we try to do. That's our goal. We're trying to take care of customers. We're trying to help people out. We don't want you, believe it or not, We don't want you to sit for 3 days with your hay on the ground. We would love to have the part,
Yeah.
and get you going. We want you to put your hay up. We want you guys to get your crop up, because that's your livelihood. We're here to help.
Yeah. Customer service in general, I think there's a certain brand of customer that thinks you're conspiring against me to make my life hard. It's like, no, like these folks.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah. I know you.
You genuinely like helping people.
I do. And that's why I got into the business to begin with, was I grew up in a mechanical family. My dad was a service manager at John Deere dealership in Livingston for almost 20 years.
Second generation John Deere service guy.
And my
manager.
My mom's dad was the service manager at a GM dealership in Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. I grew up in central Pennsylvania and farm country.
What was the town?
Winfield.
Okay. I'm going to write that down.
Right along the Susquehanna River.
Ooh. I think I need to visit Pennsylvania because I've heard cool stuff. I think it's cool.
Stay out of the cities, you'll be fine.
Yeah. What is it again? Winfield?
Winfield, Pennsylvania is where I grew up.
I ran into some Pennsylvanians at one of my gigs a couple weeks ago.
There are a lot of us out here.
Yeah, they're super nice.
Yeah.
Everyone I've run into, I go, and it's funny because there's a humility that at least I have noticed, and we'll get back to the service. And so I was inaccurate. The fact checkers are going to get me. I said, "Oh, you're a second generation service. Yeah. You're a second generation mechanical dealership customer helper guy, but you're the parts manager."
Yeah, I'm mechanically minded, so
of course you are.
It makes it easier for me to explain how this parts breakdown works and what this part is, and try to find what you're describing to me, because I can sort of understand how the machinery works and link that into how the picture is blown up. Because the parts, I always tell people, the parts books were written by the geekiest guy you can think of, and
eggheads,
and something is called what they thought it would be. So you end up with quite a few pictures that are like, where's this bearing? Oh, it's literally in a random spot on a different page that you wouldn't even consider it to be. Where's this bearing on a baler pickup? Oh, it's floating out here with the frame somewhere. Well, why is it on the frame? Why is it with the pickup where it should be?
Like a bale picker?
Yeah. It's whatever the computer nerd who laid out the books decided it should be called and where they thought they should put it.
Well, I mean, that's so funny, Jared, because you've mentioned bearings like 2 times, and that is from growing up on a farm. A bearing always goes out. In your baler, in your tractor, wherever there's a bearing, it's going out.
It's going out. If it spins, it's got a chance to go bad.
And so, like for bearings, how do you explain that to like a regular person? I would always just say, like in a skateboard wheel, there's a bearing.
There's a bearing. There's a bearing in a skateboard wheel.
It's a disc.
Yep. There's a bearing.
It's got ball bearings inside of it.
Ball bearings or rollers or something to minimize the friction between the inner and the outer rotating discs.
Yeah. So if those little ball bearings get like pop out, or bearings will kind of warped.
They'll get hot. They'll get warped.
Yeah.
That's how you end up with a baler that gets caught fire.
Yeah.
Which
happens.
It does happen. That's why you carry a fire extinguisher on your baler or in your tractor.
I often forget that when I have guests come on here. Like I had Jacob Roundtree, and I started, I like making fun of Bozeman, but Jacob plays in Bozeman all the time.
Yeah.
And he got into professional mode, and he's like, yeah, it's an interesting and I'm like, oh yeah, I forget this guy's a professional. So you're not going to come here and, you're representing your business. I was, I'm like, I'm just going to talk to my buddy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you represent, folks, my phone's charging, or I would have snapped a picture. Jared's wearing all of his John Deere stuff. Looks pretty sharp. But yeah, so we are going, back to the Pennsylvania thing. Pennsylvanians I've met, every time I run into them out here, I go, well, and you're right, there are a lot, but rural Pennsylvanians can do very well here. I'll go, well, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Pennsylvania. And I immediately go, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's not outside of like Pittsburgh and Philly and maybe Harrisburg, they're generally pretty hardworking and decent people.
Well, it's your
generally
East Coast, but there are also some kind of I don't know. I think maybe sociologists would say that rural Montana, Wyoming, which is mostly rural, maybe even rural Colorado. I've heard someone say that a lot of parts of Colorado, they have Midwestern values, so to speak. I think that goes all the way over to Pennsylvania, kind of being inland and farm country.
And it may actually just apply to that sort of a way of life.
Yeah,
too.
just rural.
Rural, farm, ranch, working cows, working the land.
Yeah. There's just there's a way of operating that you just can't beam into someone's head.
Yeah.
Like if they grew up, and I love my friends who grew up in cities, but it's just a different way of thinking.
It is
kind of interesting. So Val and I are watching this show, which I won't name, but it's once again all the post-apocalyptic shows, and there's this group that people who listen to this will be able to guess what it is. But there's a group of Wyoming people that rebuild a whole little civilization in Wyoming.
Okay, and
I turn to Val and I go, I could see that happening. Like there's a guy, oh yeah, I'll do the plumbing, and they have power, and they've got everything up and running because everyone kind of bands together and helps each other, and then there's people in a city that are trying to do the same thing, but they're just fighting over stuff that already exists.
That's already exists. Instead of creating it or building it, they're consumers instead of creators.
Yeah,
or
and
consumers instead of builders.
Remember, you go like how many times have been those, what do they call them, like ham on the street interviews or whatever, and they'll give the microphone to somebody and ask them, well, where's your food come from? And people will say the grocery store.
The grocery store.
I mean, I think people are getting smarter than that, and I don't want to cast aspersion on all city people, but what I'm saying is there's a different mentality, and I could tell as soon as we started hanging out that you had that. Remember when you gave me that doorstop for the back door at church, and I'm like, Jared, can you just do it? I could do it. I just didn't feel like it.
Didn't feel like it.
No, but you are so mechanical. So I'll give you another example, folks. Those of you who don't know Jared, many of the people who listen to this will have met you at one point, probably
at some point.
Anyway.
Somewhere.
Or heard of
or seen you from a distance.
Yeah. So there was what was it? Oh, so my friend Micah's, Micah from church, his car stereo, he pulled the front off. He got a really cool Toyota pickup, like one of those. What's the bigger one? Tundra.
Tundra.
And it's a nice pickup. Anyway, he pulls the front display off, or like the front panel off, and there's just wires that are disconnected. And he's like, I'm trying to figure this out.
Where it goes, what's not working.
A certain dealer quoted him a ton of money. I said, Micah, I don't want to volunteer Jared for you, but have Jared take a look at it after church, because you used to do car stereo stuff.
I do. I don't. It's been a while. The last vehicle I did a car stereo in was like in 2000. It was an 05 Tahoe.
Don't you miss the times where there was
it was easy.
Yeah.
And you didn't have, if you replaced the radio, you weren't going to sacrifice a whole bunch of other vehicle functions.
Now you have no heat.
Yes. You've replaced your stereo. Now you can't make a wireless call.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I guess that was a throwback to me. You were talking about putting in, was that your blue Tahoe?
Yeah, the blue Tahoe.
Put in some power amps and some, did you put subs in there?
Yeah. I have one in there now. I used to have more than I do now. But
Subwoofers. But, it brought me back to like when I was in high school. And when did you graduate from high school?
98.
Yeah. I graduated in 02. So we're right in the same window there.
In the same ballpark, yeah.
So you had your early 90s to late 80s vehicle. And the first thing, once you got your vehicle, if you're a music person, the first thing you do is you got a deck. You put a deck in there.
You'll find this funny. My first vehicle that I did a stereo in was an 84 Jeep Cherokee.
Oh, man.
And I didn't have a deck in it. I rigged it so that I had a sub and the speakers were powered by an amp. And then I rigged it so I plugged it into one of those Sony Walkman CD players.
Yeah.
And I controlled the volume with the volume on the CD player.
Oh, that's cool.
And
it was probably pretty slick.
It worked pretty good.
They had skip protection.
Yep. Until a friend of mine decided to mess with me. And we were at a college back when Montana Bible College was here in Bozeman. They had like Future Quest, which was their college days kind of thing. And on a Saturday afternoon, it was a weekend thing. So you had a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, kind of a thing. And on Saturday afternoon, you got some free time after lunch. And we went to the mall here in Bozeman, and a buddy of mine was there, and they were driving around just kind of bored looking for something to do. They were at Future Quest too. And he decided, oh, that's Jared's Jeep. So he stopped and tried to get into my Jeep. Well, unbeknownst to me, the auto door locks didn't lock the rear hatch.
Oh, man.
So he got into my vehicle, pulled my subwoofer out, and grabbed my CD collection and my CD player and left a scribbled note on a napkin and stuffed it back in the glove box. Said, "You should lock your car doors, ha, ha, ha." And then he signed it because he was an old friend of mine.
Yeah.
I went to high school with him. I knew who it was. And I'm like, I got back out and I'm like, where is everything? And they started checking around and found the note in the glove box. I'm like, oh, it was Josh.
I'm going to kill him.
He regretted messing with me. He had an 84 half-ton Chevy. It was a really nice truck.
Oh, yeah.
Really good shape. I went back to the church and found that he didn't lock his vehicle
What
either.
a dork.
I switched spark plug wires.
Oh,
I
yeah.
started tweaking knobs on the carburetor, and it took him 6 months to get that thing to run right again.
Good.
After I messed with it. So I'm like, dude.
You don't mess with a man's music.
No.
I mean, especially. So, like, for you young kids, the deck was the thing that you would put the CDs into.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I had one, my brother-in-law. It was a pretty good deal for me because he goes, I'll trade you guitar lessons and I'll buy you this deck and I'll put it in for you. I had a 92 Nissan Sentra. Mm-hmm. I loved that car. I forget what it was. It was like a 1-point-something liter 4-banger manual. I had it up
manual. You can't find those hardly anymore.
I had it up to 108, 106, 108 miles an hour one time on a road that I should not have. But anyway, he put in the deck, and it had this face that would, you'd turn it on, and then you'd press the button, and the face would drop down, and then you'd put the CD in, and then you'd press the button and come back up. Mm-hmm. We got it at Walmart. But anyway, the deck is where you'd put the CD in. And then later on, they did start coming out with decks that you could plug an auxiliary cable into. But now everything's Bluetooth.
Everything's Bluetooth, or the one that I have in my Tahoe actually has a USB in the back. So I just have a little extension, and I plug in a USB jump drive. And that's
into your phone? Oh, a jump drive.
Just a jump drive.
With your music on it?
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah. I'm a little old-fashioned that way. I probably could put it all on my phone and Bluetooth it in, but...
Did you know there are people there's a whole community of people that are buying used CDs and accumulating
them?
I've thought about switching back because we switched to Spotify, and I love it, but there's been a lot of talk from different folks that I've been just watching on YouTube or listening to via podcasts. And they're sick of the algorithm telling them what to listen to. They want to have total control like you used to. And so back when we as kids, you had a CD. What did you call it? I think we called it a CD wallet, which maybe not.
Yep.
It was like a binder kind of.
I could call it a trapper keeper, but nobody knows what that is anymore.
Oh man, we're going in retro heaven right now. I had a trapper keeper, folks. Kids used to have binders that you had folders for all your classes, and you had a little notepad, and it was a 3-ring binder, and then there was a flip part on it, or you could zip them. Some of them would zip together,
zip them closed so that you didn't lose anything. Yep.
I had a purple and pink tiger stripe one.
Oh, that does not surprise me one bit.
That was pretty punk.
Mine was black, but.
Well, you wonder why I always dress in black. But anyway, there's this group of folks, and they're buying used CDs. They're accumulating CDs, and CDs are cheap. The problem with CDs is that what we're finding as you get multiple years behind you with CDs is they do degrade because it's just a little piece of cellophane and sandwiched between two pieces of plastic.
Yeah.
But it's still good audio quality. And if you get them ripped onto your computer, so some people they're just, like my whole CD, I mean, you can see over there, I got a lot. I inherited all my sister-in-law CDs too, because she didn't know what to do with them. I said, I'll take them. The only one I destroyed was, I forget, it was like a Jeremy Camp CD or something. But anyway, you just put them all. You'd load them all onto your computer or rip them, is what we would say, and then you have them. And so, I've been considering going back to that because I still have an iPod Classic.
Oh yeah,
and it's a big one.
I was cleaning out one of my nightstands in our bedroom the other day, and I came across, what is it, an iPod? It was one of those narrow ones. It's only like an inch wide and about 3 inches tall, and has
a
just
nano.
a little. It wasn't a nano. It
Shuffle?
was it was a little bigger. Maybe it was a nano because the shuffle was like 1 inch square.
They're tiny, yeah.
And the
used to
nano
clip
was
them
like
on.
3 inches tall and an inch wide.
I think it's that one.
Yeah, it was like a Gen 2 Nano.
I've got one in my car. I've got valves. They're still like pristine. And there's a whole modding community, people that are modding iPods.
Mod 'em?
Yeah.
Wow.
Replacing the batteries. And I think what it is there's so many trails we can go down. People they're tired of everything kind of, because I mean, in a digital ecosystem, it doesn't really feel like you're doing anything. There's no tactile element. There's no touch. There's no selection. There's, and I personally have had my Spotify algorithm introduce me to bands that I never would have found.
Yeah, and that's
based
something
on other stuff I like. So that's
something
cool.
Spotify's been good for. I've been the same way. I have playlists, and you get to the end of the playlist, and it just keeps going with like, oh, I think you'll like this. Well, I kind of do, or I kind of don't, or try it. But I've not bought a CD for a while, but I usually will go to like Amazon Music or something like that and actually buy the digital copy of it so that I have it.
Yep. I own several copies of albums on Apple Music. It used to just be iTunes. And I'll tell you, though, I think there's some validity. I try to buy vinyl now, but part of the problem with that is you have to, well, it's not really a problem. It's super cool. You sit down and you have to listen to it.
Yeah, you have to go to the shelf and pick out a vinyl album and put it on the player and move the needle around. And
it's probably good to make time. Are we doing this?
If you want to.
Yeah. Do I need a towel?
I hope not.
That was a good one. Oh, yeah. I got a Fresca. You have a energy drink. What do we got? Ooh, looks like a good one.
An energy drink from a manufacturer based in Pac-Man.
Pac-Man? Ah.
Ghost.
Yeah, it's just interesting how things have kind of shifted, and I sometimes forget that. I don't know. Maybe it's just nostalgia, and I mean, everything wasn't better back whenever, but sometimes it seems like it because you just existed.
I heard somebody say that the reason why Gen X is generally so ornery and angry is because they bought their record collection on vinyl, and then they had to buy it again on tape, then they had to buy it again on CD.
Yeah.
And now you can just get it on Spotify.
You know, there were some years where I still just had a tape deck in my car, and Hastings, which you would have experienced when you were here, it was the center of all civilization of Bozeman, honestly, because it was a huge bookstore.
Great for going in and buying used DVDs. And
huge.
If I don't like this movie, it only cost me $2, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And there was something, and you've all who listen probably have heard this kind of thing before too, but there's something to the adventure of just buying an album, like buying a CD, but you just buy it based on the cover.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in the metal section, and the cover looks cool.
And I'll give it a try.
Yeah. And when you win, it's awesome.
You win. It's awesome. It is.
I mean, I found like a thrash metal band when I was a kid called Overkill, and they were kind of contemporaries of Metallica and Anthrax and Slayer and all them, but they just weren't as well known. And I had this album I just loved, and it was kind of fun. But then you'd buy ones that were losers. I'll never forget when I was in junior high. So this would have been before you were, or after you were in junior high. You know, Hanson got really big.
Yep, I remember Hanson,
and everyone liked Hanson because they were kids playing music. But man, I can't remember, someone bought that CD for me. I think I liked it because they were the same age as me, and they were making music, and I wanted to make music. But then everyone got rid of their Hanson CDs, and you could go to the used CD section or just the CD section, and
find whatever you wanted.
There's like 50 Hanson CDs in there. I mean, should have just used them as coasters. But there was an adventurous element of it. I mean, like you said, even with used DVDs, you could buy used DVDs that they'd kind of retire from the.
Yeah.
Well, they'd buy like 5-10 copies of it to rent out.
And then when they only had one, when they'd get to where they were like, oh, we're not renting this out anymore, they'd sell you the rental DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever for like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. And I still have a DVD player upstairs. So the thing that's interesting about that too is I've been looking for Looney Tunes, and you can buy episodes like through Apple or Amazon or wherever, but there are some that have been scrubbed.
Yeah.
That you can't get unless you have the old DVD set.
And probably deemed like socially unacceptable.
Yeah. And I miss those.
Elmer Fudd with the gun. Oh my God, we can't have that.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing in the world.
Yep.
I mean I don't know. There's something to that. And yet I do see, like, I'll see kids. I know a few kids from the school where we went growing up, and they get out and about and they do cool stuff. So I mean, a lot of them are okay, but I do think there's a lot of young people who just exist online. I was watching a video from this future-proof guy on YouTube, and he talked about, you could literally replace all of your experiences and situations with online.
Yeah.
So you get your social connection from Zoom or FaceTime.
Did you ever watch Ready Player One?
No, I should.
It's like 500 years in the future, and that's all that anybody ever exists is online.
Yeah.
But you can go online and you go into this like completely fantasy world and however you want it to be. And I think it's PG-13, so it's not like creepy nasty, but at least not that I remember anyway. It's been a year or two since I've watched it.
You're gonna be my experiment. Well, there have been a lot of movies that are based on that. You know, the digital thing. And,
that idea.
Yeah, kind of what maybe the outgrowth of it could be. Nobody knows what an artificial intelligence is going to do and all that stuff. But you're going to be my, we're going to try this. I don't know if I'm going to call it the speed round, but that's what I'm calling it right now.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I've only thought of one in advance.
Okay.
Because I've wanted to try this with people.
Bring it on.
Tacos, pizza, or burgers?
Ooh. Depends on the burger and depends on the pizza. If it's a Pizza Moon pizza from Epic Universe in Universal Orlando, I am down for that because that is probably the best pizza I've ever had.
Pizza Moon pizza from Epic Universe.
Yes. Sponsored by
Orlando.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That was good. But I'm always down for a good burger too.
You into Cholm's? Have you gotten a burger from Cholm's?
I have not.
In Bozeman?
I have not.
They're one of the food trucks over there, right behind us, kind of.
I've seen them, but I haven't gotten a burger from them.
Pretty good. They make their fries in beef tallow. So, yeah,
that would be good.
Highly recommend to anybody go to Cholm's. Not sponsored, just saying. Very good.
Not saying, just good food.
I do have a beverage. Sawdust and Steel preemptively is sponsoring our beverage time, though Jared and I do not have alcoholic beverages at this point. We have energy drinks. Well, he's got an energy drink. I've got my old man Fresca. Someone told me that John MacArthur's favorite soda is Fresca.
I have not heard that rumor.
I don't know. Anyway, all right, I got to get back in here. My computer goes to sleep. I don't make sure I'm still recording. Yep. So back to the introvert thing. We were just talking about being an introvert. So you're an introvert?
Generally, I'm not as introverted as my wife is, but But a day after a full day of dealing with people, I generally just kind of want to just chill and not be around people.
And so then inevitably, because you are a professional worship leader, people will say, "Well, you work in a church. How could that be? How could that be, Jared?
How could that be that I'm introverted? It's hard to explain. I'm not introverted to the point where I can't function in social situations, like in a customer service situation, or even talking with a church member after the service, or dealing with musicians. But because I'm slightly introverted, it generally takes a little more out of me.
Yeah.
Not from a physical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint. I'm like, if it's been a really busy day and I'm like, okay, it's closing time and I lock the door, I sometimes I will tap out on the way home, and I'll just be like, I'll get home and I won't remember, how did I get home? I mean, I'm glad to be home, but how did I get home? I don't remember any of that because I was just nothing.
You tune out.
Yes, you tune out, especially when it's a drive you've made, every day for, 5, 6, 7 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, and people can be a mix. People can be introvert, extrovert, and I know we get all hung up on categories, but I think it's helpful, like, to know yourself. Because I thought I was an extrovert, and I really do. I love people. I love them. But what happens to me is when I'm in a social situation, I end up not necessarily taking over, but I end up kind of being the lightning rod of a group. And people, people will say, "Oh, you're so good with people. How could it be that you don't want to be with people all the time?" Well, it makes me tired. I think being an introvert is how do you get recharged?
Yeah.
For me personally, it's time alone or time with my family or one-on-one type stuff.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, I'll go home and I can recharge those batteries by sitting, having dinner with my wife, maybe watching a movie, watching a show. I do enjoy woodworking, although that doesn't necessarily mean I'm good at it. I just enjoy it. Kind of like me with guitar. I may not be good at it, but I enjoy it.
You're good at it.
But, I recharge my batteries doing stuff that I like. I do play video games, although I don't usually do it during the week because I find that if I plug in a video game, then before I know it, it's midnight, and I don't need that because 5 o'clock comes early the next day.
Hey, a couple more speed round questions, and this one's gonna be a curveball for you.
Shoot.
Coke or Pepsi?
Mountain Dew.
I knew you were going to say that. If you have to pick between Coke and Pepsi, you probably just wouldn't drink either.
That's like firing squad versus electric chair.
Okay, firing squad versus electric chair. Let's do that.
I would probably have a tendency to go firing squad.
Yeah, me too.
Somebody's going to hit me in the heart or the head, and it's going to be over. Whereas electric chair, there could be some torture going on there.
We've watched enough movies. What is it? The Green Mile? In the Green Mile?
The Green Mile.
Oh, man.
I don't want to end up being Frankenstein's monster. Come on now.
I don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to say by default you would choose Pepsi.
Probably.
Just because Mountain Dew is
a Pepsi product.
Yes. And then Mellow Yellow would be the Coke.
Mellow Yellow's not bad either.
I liked Mellow Yellow growing up. You remember Surge?
I do remember. I was going to mention that. I was going to say I used to like Surge when they still had it.
It was good. I had a friend who bootlegged Surge out of his locker.
Nice.
Shout out to Eric Basta. He was a rebel.
Selling Surge out of his locker.
Eric Basta from Manhattan Christian School once rear-ended a bus because he was trying to moon the people who were on the bus while he was driving. So he was stopped behind the bus, and he sees some kids that he wanted to get a rise out of, and he's trying to moon them, and I think gets his foot off it was probably a slow motion rear ending.
Didn't put it in park or took his foot off the brake.
He was trying to take his rear end out, and he rear ended the bus.
Rear-ended the bus.
But yeah, I mean, anyways, Surge used to he would bootleg. He'd bootleg Surge out of. Hey, are your headphones loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So anyway, the introvert thing is, how do you get recharged? My recharge is being home. That's what I love about, like, I've been doing so much. I'm going to have to say all the dates that I'm playing at the end of this because I keep forgetting to do that. But I'll play a show. So I play 3 1-hour sets, and I pack all my stuff up. Love hanging out with the people, especially at the Cowboys Lodge and Grill down in Gardner. Go visit. It's pretty cool. But then I get in my car, and that hour and a half drive home.
Yeah. Just nothing.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then you can see the shadow, the silhouette of the mountains against the night sky.
Yep.
It makes me feel good.
So when my family moved to Montana in 94, my mom's uncle was the pastor at Paradise Valley Community Church out south of Livingston. And to this day, my parents still live about a mile north of Mill Creek Crossroads on East River. So that's kind of
It's your stomping grounds.
a little bit. We never really got down to Gardner much. My youngest brother, Justin, on him, wild hair, just one morning decided to hop on, one summer morning, he was not in school at the time, just decided to hop on his bike and ride the 35 miles down to Gardner just for kicks.
That's a long way.
And he did it.
Was it like a kid bike too?
No, it was a mountain bike. It wasn't even a road bike. It was just one of those fat tire, not like super like 4-inch wide tires, but like, the typical mountain bike.
At least he had gears.
He had gears, yes.
Is that mostly downhill from where you are to get to Gardner? Kind
I
of.
think it's mostly uphill.
Mostly uphill. Yeah, you're probably
Mostly
right.
uphill.
Yeah, Yankee Jim Canyon.
Yankee Jim Canyon.
That's when the cell service just drops to zero
It's
for
done.
a while.
It's done.
I was on the phone with my grandpa on my way into a gig one afternoon, and he thought I hung up on him. And I had to call him when I got back to Gardner.
It's like boom, it's done.
Well, it's like Gallatin Canyon.
It's not like break up, gone. It's like
Hard stop.
Hey, done.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That's one of the nice things I think about Montana is you go places and you don't have service, and people just get that.
Yeah.
I was up the canyon.
Yeah. My brother, I have two younger brothers, Jesse and Justin. Justin joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. Just actually retired. I got to go see his retirement ceremony.
How's that?
That was interesting.
Yeah.
It's really quite, I don't want to say goosebumps, but it's really quite something to hear about 40 or 50 Marines singing the Marine Corps fight song.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was pretty cool. And then to watch his retirement ceremony and be there for it was really quite, it was cool.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance. My wife got a chance to go when he graduated from boot camp at 29 Palms in San Diego. But I didn't get to go to that one because it was, I don't remember what was happening that day. I think it was, or that weekend. I think I was on call and it was still haying season or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics of it, but I didn't get to go. My wife did. And this time I got to go, but she had to stay home to do some prep work for another graduation that we were attending.
Well, kind of cool because she was there on the front end and you were there on the back end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Did he serve in Iraq?
He spent 3 months in Iraq and never told anybody till he got back.
That's enough.
Yeah, that was enough. I love my brother dearly. Justin and I are the most geared alike.
Yeah.
The most personality-wise alike. But coming back from Iraq, when my brother Jesse got married, he was, I don't remember how long out of Iraq he was, how far out of Iraq it was, but there was some things that were still affecting him, let's just say.
If you were a Marine, well, really anyone, if you were out there for the most part, you saw some.
Yeah, and it wasn't like
action.
He was not like going, he wasn't like remote or anything like that. He was literally part of teams that were going door to door looking for insurgents. So knocking on doors.
Well, that's Marines.
Yeah.
We are big fans of the Marines and the cinema family. My brother Caleb, his brother-in-law, we're so close to our in-laws, to even our brother's in-laws, weirdly enough. But, I just call him my friend. Doug Chavez was a Marine pilot. Yeah. And, I mean, now he's a med flight guy.
Yeah.
Doug flew helicopters. It's something. And I think when guys come back, it is very interesting. Did he get to share stories with you or anything like that?
We didn't really ask. We kind of knew what he did when he was over there.
Podcast burp, mic discipline, good job.
Yep. So we got some sort of generalizational story, type of things, but we didn't really bug him for specifics. How many insurgents did you capture? Or, it was like, this is what you did while you were over there. We didn't find out about it until after he got back. But he was in Iraq. He joined MSG, which is Marine Security Guard Detail, which is guarding consulates and embassies. You sign on for 3 years for that. Yeah. So he was in Frankfurt, Germany, and then Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and then back to Brussels, Belgium for his 3 stints there. But yeah, if you can't tell, I'm really proud of my little brother.
Yeah, I would be too.
I'm proud of my middle brother, Jesse, but Justin joining the military was something that wasn't really even on the radar for my family. So him joining the military and the Marine Corps was, I don't want to say it was out of left field, but it kind of was. It wasn't something that we kind of pictured Justin doing. And when he did it, he did it. He retires as not a staff sergeant. He's a gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. And I'm proud of my little brother. I'm proud of my middle brother, Jesse. He's got 6 kids, so he's got a handful.
He's got his own battles to fight.
He's got his own battles to fight. He's
farmer, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He works for his father-in-law in Choteau County.
Yeah,
between Great Falls and Havre.
Oh man, yeah. There's still some Montana left out there.
And there, you were talking earlier about there's places where you all of a sudden, boom, you've got no cell service. His place is one of them.
My dad's place. Mm-hmm. When you hit the actual home place, that's just in the valley here,
which is weird being in Gallatin County. Yeah. I mean, Jesse's place is down along the Missouri River, so he's kind of down in I don't want to say a ravine, but
he's in a hole. We would always call it a hole.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, a little bit. So you drop down off the flat where the fields are, and you drop down into that kind of hole. You got nothing.
How old were you? That was what I was thinking about while you were talking about some of them, like growing up, because part of your growing up was in Montana, but the first part was in Pennsylvania.
Yep. We moved out here in '94. I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
I had attended a private Christian school for the first 8 years of my school career, so to speak.
So what grade when you came out?
I was 8th. I started freshman.
Yeah, okay.
It was between my 8th grade and freshman.
Was that tough?
Going to Park High, yes.
I've heard things.
You go from a class of, let's say there was maybe 100, 125 kids, kindergarten through 12th, to a graduating class. My graduating class, I think, was like 131, 129, something like that. So that was a bit of a culture shock. And
so it was a smaller school to a bigger school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot smaller class size.
What was your class size again? I am number blind.
At Park High?
No, the other one.
I want to say it was like 10 or 12.
Yeah, you just said, okay, yeah, I'm number blind. You did say 12.
Yeah, it was like from K through 12, it was like 100, 125 kids for the whole school, and then you go to a graduating class that's more than your entire school was.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a culture shock. I spent the first 2 years of my high school career trying to avoid being singled out or noticed. I tried to be as invisible as I could, and then somewhere along the line in my junior year, I decided I'm never going to be invisible. I don't care.
Yeah.
And done. I was who I was. If you liked me, great. If you didn't, I don't care.
It's interesting you would say that, because when I started in ministry, my first church was in Texas, and they really let me be who I was. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily care what everyone thought, but I started feeling like I had to care about what everybody thought because of the job. I was being a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And so I spent years and years trying to moderate myself, and there's some good to that, I think. And now that I'm 41, I am trying to get back to where I didn't care what anybody thought. Not that I don't love people, because I do, but their opinion can't have bearing on what I'm doing or the decision making process.
The ironic thing was when I think it was somewhere in between my sophomore or junior year, or some point during the fall semester of my junior year, I just decided I didn't care what people thought, because I wasn't succeeding at being invisible.
Yeah.
Classmates knew who I was, and there were a couple of them that decided they wanted to torment me just because I wasn't part of their crowd or part of the in crowd. And I just said, I don't care. And the more I decided I don't care and just was, I was just myself, the more people actually were friendly towards me, and not just like, oh, I don't know who that is, or it's hard to put into words. It's the more I became okay with who I was and who I was in public, the more people, I think, probably respected who I was. Whether they liked me or not, I was who I was, and I wasn't going to change for them.
I have more meaningful conversations with people when I'm out and about, specifically doing music stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When I say, look, I'm not here to preach. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to be a guy playing music. And then all of a sudden I have no agenda. And then the conversations get better and more deep and more meaningful. And it's funny because if you did have an agenda, you would want it to go that way. But if you have an agenda, it's not going to go that way. People are going to close themselves off. So if you're just yourself, that's good advice to the young folks. Just be who you are.
Be yourself. I mean, there's definitely a right and a wrong.
For sure.
But, within a set framework of who you are, Ruben, you like punk rock music. Own it.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yeah.
I grew up, I was a very sheltered kid. I didn't really get to choose my own music until we moved out here in 94.
Yeah.
If I had to start a band right now, it would probably sound like Three Doors Down.
Yeah.
I don't care what people think about that.
Well,
that's who I am.
But what's cool is
you like what you like.
Yeah. There's a band in Bozeman here called Daddy's Home, and they play like what they would call dad rock. They play Creed. They play that type of stuff. Well, it's come full circle. When we were kids, it used to kind of almost, some people would make fun of you for liking Creed, but I think deep down, everybody kind of liked them because they were good songs.
Growing up, Creed was one of those bands that you either loved them or you hated them. There was no middle ground. But Summer of '99 tours with Three Doors Down and Finger 11 and Creed were selling out. My wife and I got a chance to go to one of those shows.
They probably still are.
They still would. I mean, they had what was it, the cruise of '99, or it was like the summer of '99, but it was on a cruise ship, and that sold out.
Yeah,
and that was a fantastic show. I don't know that was 100% the best live music show I've ever been to, but it was awful darn close.
Was that when you were in Salt Lake?
Yes, we went to that in Salt Lake.
Well, I think that kind of gets to the music thing and how your music tastes develop. We had this, like I said, we had Hastings growing up, and so, and then what happened here, and it really comes down to what you're in proximity to. I got into punk rock because I always felt like a reject. I wasn't a jock. I didn't do the stuff that maybe my community would have thought was cool. My friends and I skateboarded. And so there were even rumors when we were in high school that we smoked pot, even though we didn't. And we skated and we played punk rock. We got into punk rock music because it was reject music.
Yeah.
But then there was a little punk rock scene in Bozeman of other kids who had bands. And it was a place called the Blue Iguana, which is across from Doc and Nelson Funeral Home downtown. And we played there. And some legit punk rock bands came through there. But then we had the Vans Warped Tour.
Okay.
And that was at the fairgrounds for several years. There's a couple years, 2 or 3 years, I can't remember. They were at the Gallatin Valley Fairgrounds, and then they were in Billings off of Zoo Drive somewhere out there.
Out there. There's at the time there was a lot of fields out there, so it may have just been hey, we're going to rent somebody's field and set up a stage, and away we go.
I'll never forget, Val and I saw these kids get in a wreck. I think they were drunk. They like crashed into 2 different cars, and then their vehicle rolled over on the side.
Okay.
And Val and I said, let's keep walking. We don't want to be a part of this. They'll figure it out. I'll never forget the passenger's back door opened up like a submarine hatch. Somebody came out of there. But I got into that because it was reject music, and I felt like a reject, and I didn't feel like I fit in. And I look back, everyone really did love me, and my teachers loved me, but I just wasn't in the mainstream thing. Well, for you, what are you in proximity to? You're really getting the most aggressive music that you can find with the resources that you have.
Yep.
And then what I like to do is I'll go back. So who influenced Creed? And you go and you check them out. And then who influenced them? And eventually you all get back to the same place. You all get back to the blues way back.
They've all got some sort of blues influence on them.
They do.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of have that in common. And so that's something that I've realized is like in Bozeman anymore, there are punk rock bands, but I wouldn't describe it as a scene. And so you would just play with a rock band, or I play with anybody. Yeah. But something that came into my life as I started writing more songs, was like traditional country and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that you like Johnny Cash, but you're not a big fan of traditional country overall.
I honestly, and this is a spicy take,
Yeah.
I think that country music died when Garth Brooks became popular.
Well, I mean, I think you could, yeah. I think
because I think Garth Brooks killed country music, and that's my spicy take. Because
standing outside the fire.
Because he made it pop.
Yeah.
And country had its roots in in farming and ranching.
It's rural music.
It's rural music.
Bro, I was just watching a documentary about Waylon Jennings.
Yeah.
Guess how Waylon Jennings grew up?
On a farm?
Cotton farm. Grew up in Texas, I think.
Yeah.
How did Johnny Cash grow up?
On a farm.
Cotton farm.
Yep.
So when what those guys were saying resonates with you, it's because it's how you were brought up. It was rural. You're absolutely right. And that was a whole thing in the 90s.
Yeah.
The urban cowboy thing is not new. When I make fun of people walking by my house all dolled up, looking like idiots.
Yep.
And it's like, that's not Western. You couldn't get by doing, what are you doing?
I've gone to the Livingston Roundup Rodeo. I've only ever been to it like twice. And it's because it really would annoy me when you would see people there that that's like the only time of year they dress like a cowboy.
Yeah.
They're dressed in their cowboy cut Wranglers and their brush popper, but those cowboy cut Wranglers and the brush popper only come out maybe twice a year. It's like, are you living the life or are you a fraud?
Yeah.
And
what's the poser thing? That was a big word when we were kids.
Poser.
Yeah.
Hey, poser.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, because we had it when we'd be skateboarding, and then other people who didn't skateboard started wearing skate brands. And you're like, what are you doing? We'd always ask, so do you skate?
Yeah.
Well, no. Well, then why are you wearing stuff from whatever?
Yeah. I'm wearing Vans right now, and
we
I don't
wear
skateboard.
Vans because they're comfortable.
Yes.
Anyway, but it is something, I mean, I think your theory could prove out, and I'll tell you why. The pop country thing, country became kind of divorced from its roots. They would kind of sing about, and I don't know where Garth Brooks is from or how he grew up, but then you'd have guys like Dwight Yoakam, who contemporary, but he was playing, he himself said he was playing honky-tonk music at a time when it was not in vogue, and success kind of came to him because he kept writing good songs and doing what he was doing.
If you're good, it'll happen.
And he's kind of rock adjacent too. Like he got started in the cowpunk scene in California, but he has roots in Appalachia.
Yeah,
and you can hear it. You can hear it in those people. And so, like for me, it was not a. When I started getting into old school country music. But what's cool is the streams kind of diverge.
Yeah.
Even in the 90s, there was traditionally styled country music. And now I'll look back and listen to George Strait or Clint Black or those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Like, Chris Ledoux was a legit cowboy.
There's some country there, yeah.
Yeah.
But what modern country music is not anywhere close to country.
Like pop country, like hip hop and all that garbage.
Just because you add a fiddle does not make it country.
Well, that's what Tom Petty was in the really long documentary they did with him, Running Down a Dream. He said, I always liked traditional country music, but as far as I can tell nowadays, country music is just a bad rock band with a fiddle.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong.
Not wrong at all.
And so, like, I'll have it when I'm playing these gigs where I mostly play outlaw country, old school country, and some rock.
Yeah. You tend to lean a little more outlaw country style, though.
Twanged up rock and
your voice lends itself to it.
There's rasp.
Yep, there's some rasp in your voice.
But people go, hey, can you play something like Luke Bryan? And I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm not going to do it.
Not going to happen.
Sometimes I'll learn a song. Like I had people request Take Me Home Country Roads, and I avoided it for so long.
And you finally pulled it out.
Yeah, and they really loved it, so that can be cool. But I think you're right. And even now, like there are contemporary country artists like Coulter Wall and Charlie Crockett and let's see, Cody Jinks and some of those guys who are back more to the outlaw traditional.
You're starting to see a little more of that shift.
Yeah,
which is weird because I don't.
Three Doors Down, I think, has some country influence.
A little bit, yeah.
You can hear it in his voice.
You can hear that in his... Well, he's from Alabama.
Yeah.
Which is actually... I'm tongue-tied now. It's actually kind of
Tongue-tied?
It's actually kind of sad. It was a couple months ago he announced that he's got stage 4 cancer.
What?
Brad Arnold does. So that's a bummer.
I'm gonna look this up. Three Doors Down influences.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what the internet has to say.
Yeah.
Heavy metal, blues, and there's blues there.
Yeah, there's some blues in there.
Oh, whoa, look at this. Guitarist Chris Henderson cites bands like Accept.
Okay.
They're a classic 80s metal band.
Yep.
Scorpions as influences.
Okay. I could see that too.
Let's see. Another guitarist mentioned B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, Joe Satriani as influences.
Yeah, okay. I could see that too. There's some of that in there.
Beyond this, the band also found inspiration in live performances of Seven Dust, learning from their aggressive and tight stage presence. Early on, Creed also played a role in guiding the band. That's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, if you could get to Led Zeppelin from Three Doors Down, and
you can get
from Led Zeppelin to the blues real easy.
Really, really easy.
Because those British guys, especially like the Rolling Stones, they were playing blues. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's kind of neat is if you have the perspective. And country, there was a documentary, I think it was a Ken Burns documentary about country western music. And there's this old African-American blues dude. And what he said was, my friend Armand would say, Ruben, it's black. So whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I love you, Armand. I should have him on here. Anyway, intrusive thoughts. This old black blues guy goes, let's see, country music ain't nothing but white man's blues. It's pretty true.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Do you like Joe Bonamassa?
I haven't really listened to much of him.
You might like him. I never said that to you before, but you might. He kind of is in that British blues tradition, but then kind of he's an American, and so it's a higher production value and more high octane kind of stage presence and all that.
And I think getting back to the country music thing, I think that's probably what killed country music. And in my mind, anyway, is
at least in a popular sense,
it became less about the music and it became more about the business.
Yeah,
and it was what record labels could sell.
Yep,
I can sell. Record label would look at it and say, I can sell Florida Georgia Line. I can sell, whoever it is that became popular. And now that you've got music has gotten to the point where anybody can almost put up a couple of songs on Spotify, and I think that may have played into it too, because you've got more access to people who may be writing more classical type country songs are getting some recognition because of Spotify, and they're putting it out on Spotify and people are streaming it.
Yeah.
As opposed to a record label saying, well, no, I can sell this band, but I'm not going to make any money with this guy.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sign him. So,
from the Country Music Hall of Fame, the youngest of 6 children, Garth Brooks was born. Troyal Garth Brooks, 62, same age as my dad. He followed in the musical footsteps of his mother, who appeared on Ozark Jubilee in the 50s. She was a recording artist for Capitol. Sister could play a variety of stringed instruments. Music-loving family, heard traditional country music of Merle Haggard. It doesn't say how he grew up, so I don't know. But kind of came from. But then there's that whole thing of the whole Nashville industrial complex and all that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, back to you're a rock guy.
I'm a rock guy, and it shows in if you come to Bozeman CRC and attend a typical worship service, I don't. The stereotypical worship guitarist with like all the delays and dotted eighth delays and everything.
Yeah, we're not a U2 cover band.
No,
church.
We're not a U2 cover band at church. I'm more of a let's just get up there and play and sing the songs, and we're going to do our best. And I get a little bit of distortion, and that's just how it works.
Yeah, to explain to other people what distortion means, it's all I could say is it's that rock guitar sound. That's all I'll say.
Yes,
it sounds loud, but it's not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I don't know, that's interesting because people, this kind of goes down to, I'm seeing with all these guests that you might see this guy at the parts counter at John Deere, not realizing that he's a worship leader at a church and he's a musician.
Yeah.
Or you might see the musician at church and not realize that he's a parts manager at John Deere. And that's one of the reasons I think you get along so well with our folks, because we're kind of a rural church stuck in the middle of the city.
Yep. You're like the island of misfit toys, and I love that.
Yeah, we like that. We're not huge. I always tell people, well, what do you got going Sunday morning? We have Sunday morning, we have a women's book study, and we have a young adult Bible study. That's what we've got. And a cookout in August. No, July. Is it August?
I think it's July this year.
Yeah, it is. So you guys will play at that. I might open up for you if I'm not sick like I was last year. And then, so I like that. Something I've noticed about you, and shout out to our friend Joe, because he's in this. He'll be on here in a couple of weeks, I think. But he's in the same boat. I'm glad my dogs are barking for no reason upstairs right now. Thanks, dogs.
Did they finally catch on to the fact that I came in the side door?
Who even knows? But anyway.
They're dogs. They bark at anything.
A butterfly flapped its wings in sub-Saharan Africa. And Minnie's, the Chihuahua's barking at it.
Yeah.
But like Joe had this has this mentality. He's at the Church of Four Corners. You have this mentality is, okay, are the lyrics biblical?
Yes.
And that's it.
Because that's above all, that's what people will learn more about theology from a song than they will from a sermon. They'll remember more theology from a song than they will from a sermon. So as a worship leader, it's my responsibility to make sure that I am presenting theologically accurate lyrics.
Theology is the study of God.
Yes.
We get our theology from the Bible because that's a book that we believe was disseminated to us from God himself through the pens or quills of...
I could break into some facts that I learned from my apologetics class in Bible college, but I won't do that.
Yeah, we could. But I mean, that's what I've told people this before too. My primary goal with this podcast was not to become a spiritual content creator, because I think it's gross. But we're spiritual. We are Christians. We're not ashamed of that. We're not afraid of talking about it. But I guess that's what I like about the way that you proceed with worship stuff is it accurate? Is it accurate? Like if you sift it through scripture, is it accurate? Yeah. And I think from what I can tell from you, and we have that. I mean, I've done worship leading in my life as well. Is it singable, and is it accurate?
Is it singable by the congregation?
Yeah.
Because what I can sing may not necessarily be what the congregation can sing.
Yep. And we've instituted a hymn Sunday now once a month, and that's been cool. Kind of gives us all a day off.
That reminds me, I got to schedule that this year.
We
will.
But you've been doing a great job, and I think as far as we've been in a band together. We had Absent Idols going, and then life got to be too much, and we quit that. But we played the thing in Billings, and that was fun.
That was fun.
And rock and roll is cool. And I'm still trying to push you to write and record stuff, but life happens.
It does, especially when you're an introvert and you get home and you're just mentally and emotionally wiped.
Well, when you're hanging out with people all day, and that's something about customer service. My brother Jabin and I did a whole episode on customer service a while ago, but it is exhausting. When you're helping people all day, and you go home and you just want to unplug. That's just it.
You just want to unplug, and you find it difficult to, if you're emotionally exhausted and maybe a little bit, mentally exhausted too.
Yeah.
You find it difficult to keep wanting, you find it difficult to, okay, well, I'm exhausted. So do I really want to go out in the garage and build something?
Ugh.
Do I really want to, like right now we're in the middle of repainting our kitchen, which has turned into more than just repainting our kitchen.
You told me that.
Kitchen upgrades never turn out the way that you think they are. They're going to end up being more than you think they will be.
Yeah.
Because we got to do backsplash. But, you get home and you're like, okay, I've eaten dinner. What am I going to do? Well, the last thing I want to do is, paint the kitchen, paint the dining room. That doesn't sound like, you want to do something that you enjoy and not something that feels like a task.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're exhausted that way, that's what you want to do. You want to do something that sort of recharges your battery, something you find enjoyment in, and not something that you feel like you have to do.
Yeah. Well, that's the I've had that this summer because I've got so much. So I've had so many bookings musically,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I love it. But I've had a couple of times where I've played where I have not felt like it. Mm-hmm. And I just have to play.
Yeah.
Because I'm
you just
hired to play.
Do it.
And what's been really cool is pushing through that and going, all right,
yeah,
I've got to do this anyway. And this might not be this might not be my best few couple sets, but usually after I get the first set out of the way, then it's good. But it's been cool to be tired musically, but you get tired musically. I mean, leading worship at a church is exhausting in a way that is very hard to explain.
Yes. It can be exhausting. You are balancing the skill sets of the people on your team, which I consider myself fortunate because my wife is a killer bass player.
She's the resident bass player.
She's really good at playing bass. She's good at feeling out where the song is and getting in with the rhythm. She doesn't play for herself as much as she wishes she could, but that's adult life.
But your musical outlet really is worship leadership. That's
yes.
you, and you've both said that
yes.
to me. This is our outlet, so it's a win-win.
Yeah, this is what we do.
But you will have Sundays where you show up and it's the last thing you feel like doing.
Yep, exactly.
As much as you love the people and you love the music, it's okay. I still have to do this. I still have to lead people in worship.
I still have to do my best.
Yeah,
whether my best involves mistakes or not.
Which we've done.
I am human. I strive. As a worship leader, I strive for excellence, but not perfection, because perfection as a musician is unattainable. At least from the guy on stage's point of view, I'm never going to be 100% perfect. I might be a little pitchy starting a song. I might hit a wrong chord. I might come in at the wrong time. We had to restart a song on Sunday just because I came in. I was stuck in the tempo and the strumming pattern of the previous song, and I tried to apply that to the song that we were coming into.
And then we did it differently than how we practiced, but you just have to do it.
You just have to do it.
Yeah.
But, that's... You're striving to do the best that you can, but understanding that perfection is not ever going to happen because we're human.
Yep.
But that doesn't absolve us of at least striving to be good.
Like you said, being pooped out, and you show up on a Sunday morning and you're pooped out.
Yeah.
You've been working all week. And, that is, I was kind of find it funny. I told our leadership recently, I said, just because and they don't challenge this, they're really, really supportive, but sometimes it's good to communicate. I said, just because I take a Sunday off doesn't mean that I wasn't working the entire week. Because usually I'm working more to get the Sunday off because I've got to get things.
Yeah,
but
you've got to get you've got to get things buttoned up, and you had to get which is
you're second in command, so you've been taking care of some stuff.
Oh, goody. But I approach it with an attitude of excellence, not necessarily perfection. I have been involved with churches that I believe they required perfection, and if you couldn't be 100%, like you weren't a classically trained musician, then you were, I don't want to say second class, but you weren't welcome.
Yeah, if we're not that.
Yeah, if you weren't a classically trained musician, then here you go work with with the kids' Sunday school. Yeah. You don't need to be on stage. You go work with the kids' Sunday school. It's good enough for that.
Well, and that was something like, okay, so maybe people don't know, but I play drums with you twice a month.
Usually two times a month ish.
And well, here's what's funny. I get nervous on communion Sundays. So you said, well, we'll just do acoustic on communion Sundays, and you don't have to play drums. And then I found out I get more nervous when I don't come to rehearsal at 9.
Yeah.
But what's been really cool for me, I have to say it like that, is as we get to know each other better, as well, just personally, but also as musicians, I'll just go, I think we need to restart that. And our people are really forgiving.
Oh yeah.
And they're you couldn't have a better group of people to lead in worship or to preach to or to pray with.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey,
it's a great church body to serve. It really is.
I mean, I guess shameless plug because we both work there, but come visit us Sunday, 10 a.m. You all are welcome. You might not like what you hear because it's straight from the Bible. But the other thing, why don't you drop some apologetics on us?
Oh, about what we were talking about earlier?
We were talking about Scripture.
Name me another book that was, let's see if I can remember this, that was written over a span of 14, I believe it was 1,400 years.
A lot of years.
1,400 years by, I believe, over 40 different authors in 3 different languages, Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. There's sections of, I believe, Daniel that were written in Aramaic. That has the cohesiveness, the deeper you dig, that the Scripture has. Like your copy of the Bible that you hold, that you let's say you order off of Amazon or
you go to Barnes and Noble and you pick one up,
and you buy a version of the Bible. That version of the Bible is more accurate to the original than the copy of the Odyssey that you read in high school.
Exponentially so. There are more ancient manuscripts backing up modern Bibles than any other ancient document by the thousands. I mean, it's not even close. So it is interesting. It's actually not. I don't think it's a gamble trusting in Christ. I don't think it's a gamble.
It's not a gamble at all.
Trusting Scripture. It's not like we're a bunch of dorks. Well, I mean, I'm a dork, but in a different way.
Oh, we're dorks,
full-blown
dork right here.
We're not dumb,
and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we're not dumb. I mean, and so this book is historically accurate. Jesus historically existed.
Yep.
And these Gospels are eyewitness accounts to the life and ministry and work of Christ. And all of the people specifically who wrote the Bible, and we believe they're inspired by God himself through his Holy Spirit, they had a direct connection to God, in the case of the apostles, to Jesus. They're witnesses to the resurrection, or in Paul's case, he got knocked on his hind end by Jesus himself.
Yep, he did.
And Jesus existed historically. I've heard people say you can't prove his existence. Well, what about the Roman records that talk about Jesus and the fact that he was crucified?
Yeah,
so
there's records of that. There's 500 people that saw him at one time after he resurrected. I mean, we could really get into the weeds on proofs of Christ and Christianity.
My favorite one is the disciples were a bunch of cowardly wusses, and as soon as they saw the risen Lord Jesus Christ, they all eventually ended up giving their lives.
They all died a martyr's death.
So then why would all these guys be the same crazy that they they all decided we're going to go on a divine suicide mission where we get killed, we die with nothing, we die in prison, we die being martyred. In the case of Peter, there's a chance he was crucified upside down. That's what church history says.
That's the church historical.
And also the assumption that ancient people were dumb. They were clearly not dumb.
No, they weren't.
They were probably better at thinking than we are in certain ways.
ChatGPT is making us all stupid.
Yeah. So they actually, people go, well, there's no way anyone would have remembered that. Well, are you sure? Because cultures where traditions were transmitted verbally and auditorily, I think that's the word, they had discipline with this stuff.
And in a culture where when you were copying down Scripture, whether it be the Pentateuch, the first, was it 4 or 5 books of the Bible?
First 5,
written by Moses.
Yep.
The scribes were meticulous.
Yeah.
Like if they made a mistake, even in punctuation, they tossed the whole copy out and started again.
And there are very few Hebrew biblical, because there's biblical Hebrew and then there's modern Hebrew, and they're a little different.
Yeah.
There are very few Hebrew words that we look at and say we're not sure exactly what that meant. Very few.
Yeah.
The message, I mean, even something as simple as when God is giving instructions about the Passover. Ooh, cool sound. About the Passover is that an alarm? You got to get going.
Nope.
Okay. He's giving instructions to his people, and it says, it shall be a lamb without blemish. None of its bones will be broken. Well, fast forward to the Gospels. Jesus was the only perfect human ever to exist. We believe this.
Yep.
We have staked our lives upon this.
Yep.
None of his bones were broken. That's an interesting connection. Or the fact that the blood of this lamb needed to be smeared on the door so that the angel of death would pass over the house. And then you think Jesus' blood covers those who have been saved.
Considering that during crucifixion, it was common Roman practice, if the crucifixion wasn't killing them fast enough, they would break their legs so they couldn't push up and get more air.
And his bones were not broken.
And his bones weren't broken.
It's almost as if...
he was stabbed in the side by a huge spear.
Yeah.
But his bones weren't broken.
So they're just little interesting things that you can't make up. A bunch of crazy guys could not make this up. I'm sorry. I don't see. So anyway, we do believe this. And yeah, we might encounter some hostility here and there. But I mean, I think this is kind of a thing that's, I've talked with other people about it. Something that I try to tell Christians is, make sure you're being persecuted for your faith and you're not being persecuted because you're just a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try to do that even because Scripture says, whatever you do for the glory of God, do as unto Christ.
Yep.
And I fail miserably some days at it, but what I do, managing a parts department, selling parts to farmers in need.
Yeah.
I try to do that as best I can.
And that's a part of we call it our witness, the way that we testify to who God is through our actions and our words. And we fail all the time.
And how I deal with people. People find out that I'm a worship leader and they instantly judge the church by how I carry myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, but I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, and I think just being able to say that, look, I make a mess out of things regularly. Yeah. I struggle, but I try to take inventory and respond to that. I was having a conversation with people at a punk rock show last year, and I said, I think if you came to church, you would find that I'm the same guy there that I am here.
Yeah.
I might be a little more filtered when I'm preaching because there's language that I would maybe use in front of you or friends or family that I'm not going to use because it's just not good communication.
Yeah.
But we are the same people.
Yeah, phrase things differently.
And I don't know. It's just interesting. Like it's not for us. It's not really a blind leap of faith. Like there are reasons to trust the God of the Bible, and I think we think. At least I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you would agree with this. We believe when you get Christianity in the realm of other faiths, it's so much more attractive and
100%
burden relieving. Oh, I don't have to work my way into whatever paradise is. Jesus did it for me.
It's the only world religion where God does the work.
Yep. And what's interesting is if a testimony to God doing the work is genuine Christians, you will see a difference. They will genuinely love you.
Yeah.
And will genuinely try to do their best to respect you and all that. I mean, it's interesting in our culture because it's like anything goes except biblical Christianity. I talked with my friend Rob about this. He's not a Christian, but he pointed that out, the hypocrisy in some groups that, we accept everybody, but you're a Jesus guy, we can't accept you.
Yeah.
Well, he sees that, and that's what I love about him.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it is, I mean, we do our best to just be honest. Yeah.
I think this is actually a pretty accurate quote. I don't remember who said it, so it's going to have to go uncredited.
Yeah.
But in my younger years, I heard somebody say that if more Christians opened up and showed their battle scars, the world might believe more what we're telling them. Yeah,
that I'm not perfect. I mean, when I started as a preaching pastor, I did a pretty good job of just being who I was as a youth pastor. Shout out to my church in Steen because they loved us, Steen, Minnesota. They just loved us no matter what. And I didn't ever think I had to be perfect as a youth pastor. Then I became a senior, solo pastor in a different church. And I thought, I'm a pastor now. And then I started thinking I'm everyone's pastor. And I have to always be trying to hard sell people on stuff.
On all this stuff.
Oh, you should come to my church. Oh, you should read this. You're like, no, I just got to love folks. And you do have to, we can't stand preach the gospel. And if necessary, use words. That's garbage. You use the actions and the words.
It's both.
Yeah. I got preached to by a lady at a gig. She was preaching to me I talked about it at church, about a contemporary political issue. I'll just leave it there. And in my head, I was crabby. I was hot. I've been playing in the sun and wearing all black like an idiot. And I go, all right, now I'm going to preach to you. So folks, if you preach to me about something, I'm gonna you have opened a door and you will regret it, hopefully.
Yep.
Hopefully not, I guess.
Hopefully not, yeah.
But with where we're at, and that's one of the reasons you're such a good fit, is our church kind of was on the rocks 4 or 5 years ago and went through a consultation process. And one of the things that we learned is we just need to let ourselves be who we are as a church.
Yes.
So we're a small church. Everybody knows everybody. We don't offer 1,000 programs.
And I grew up in a small church in central Pennsylvania. I mean, it was so this feels a little more like home. Both Abby and I, Abby is my wife, for those of you who may not know. Both Abby and I grew up in small churches.
Yep.
And we go to we spent a lot of time at one of the larger churches in Gallatin County. Not that that's a bad thing.
Great church.
Yes. We love, there are people there that we absolutely adore.
Yep.
That are still going there.
Yep.
But coming to Bozeman CRC, it felt like getting back to our roots almost. It felt like, okay, this is the small church that we remember growing up. And Bozeman CRC has been, it's one giant family.
Yeah.
It may be dysfunctional at times. You may want to punch your brother sometimes, but in the end, we're all family.
Yeah, and it's they love us. They let us be who we are. That's my favorite thing about this church, honestly, is it's the first church I have felt like I've served where people don't begrudge me just being who I am.
Oh yeah,
like, all right, you're a little rough around the edges. You're a musician. You're a creative type.
Yep. And honestly, that comes out in the way that you preach. You know, there's pastors in the valley. I'm not begrudging this one bit because there's a certain aspect of people that need to be taught theology and need to be taught, okay, this is the historical context of this verse. But the way that you preach is very relational. And that's a little different than what I'm used to. And I like that.
Yeah, we have fun. I mean, I'll get into historical context and exegesis and background, but
not saying you don't ever, but
a lot of times it's, I mean, my number one thing that I had as a youth pastor was my young people would say, I just don't see how this relates to my life. Well, like when you're the Apostle Paul.
Oh, how deep do you want to go?
And you're stuck, on, like we talked about last Sunday, you're stuck on a boat headed for Rome because you've been incarcerated because of the gospel. And you are shining the light of Christ to this boat filled with people who don't believe the same thing as you. How is that not applicable? I mean, and just telling stories. Hey, you might be the only person who believes what you believe, but love people. And you know what? I mean, it says in the word, everyone who desires to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. Yeah. So you're going to be ostracized. Maybe you might not even be made fun of directly to your face, but people might not include you in their little circle. And but I think that, like you said, those genuine times of, I have found some of the best spiritual conversations I've had with people is when they've seen me mess up and I have said, I'm really sorry about that. I did not live up to what I should have. But there's good news. And I think that's been a harmful witness. I've talked to plenty of people in my group, so to speak, that they got burned by people who claimed to be Christians and just didn't live it. And all they would have had to say is, you know what? I'm a huge hypocrite. I'm really sorry about that. I'm working on that.
That's sanctification. That's,
well, I mean, like when you spend time, you ever watch like a son with a father and he walks like his dad does and he talks like his dad does and he might fix things like his dad does. And uses some of the same expressions. I mean, you spend time with God, things are going to rub off. And no, not perfect. We're not a place for perfect people. One of the things I really like about what we do together is we're not high production value. We do our best, but we don't have smoke. We don't have lights.
We're pretty basic when it comes to production. You know, you have a little drum set on stage when you play, and I think
tiny one.
And I think Daniel uses that too when he plays, and it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of not smoke and lights, and we don't even use wireless in-ear monitors. You know?
Wasn't that funny last week when Dan goes, "Do you think we should go to in-ear monitors?" And we looked. We don't like having things in our ears.
I don't mind in-ear monitors, but I can see the draw of just having wedge speakers in front of you.
Yeah, I like the sound blasting, but I guess I could see where we're kind of getting in the weeds on this.
Which is fine.
It would be nice to not have the stage volume.
Yes.
But then too, I'd probably have to have the drums in a plexiglass drum quarantine unit.
Yep. And then you have to worry about making sure that your mix in your ear is good. And Abby, the bass player, may like more bass in her mix, and then you have to worry about mixing different things in different ways and different signals in different ways. And
so point being is we just don't have all that. We have a couple of cheapo speakers pointed at us up on the stage.
Yep.
We've got a farmer and who's do we have other
college and a college kid?
Yeah, running sound. We have an ex-concrete business owner and a construction guy doing the video stuff. And they just do a great job.
They do.
I would say at Bozeman CRC, if you have to ask who does that, it means you're probably going to have to do it.
You just volunteered.
That's the term you gave me, and I know you probably got it from somewhere else. Voluntold.
Yeah. Yep. I got that from my wife.
Another question. Mario or Sonic?
Mario.
I knew you were going to say that. I hear your phone. That's so cool.
That actually, I picked that ringtone for my phone text message because it reminds me of Ratchet and Clank. And that was my absolute favorite video game
PlayStation,
for the longest time.
Right?
Yes.
Deep
PlayStation.
cut. Okay, PlayStation or Nintendo?
PlayStation.
See, interesting.
Hands down.
Okay, Ford, Chevy, or Dodge?
Chevy.
I already know the answer to that
one.
Red or green tractors?
Oh, come on now. Green. Although, full caveat, I did spend 2.5 years selling blue and red tractor parts when I first started.
Fords?
Ford New Holland.
Yeah.
It was one, at the time, it is what is now Torgerson's in Billings.
Oh, yeah.
Because I moved from Livingston down to Billings I basically was chasing Abby, who is now my wife.
Yeah.
Don't tell her I said that.
She'd probably appreciate it.
She knows. She already knows. She was involved in the whole story. So.
Oh, yeah.
But I moved down there, and that was actually my first job when I moved down there was a guy by the name of Dick Krogadal. He gave me a shot. I didn't have any experience in parts. He gave me a shot, kind of took me under his wing a little bit. I spent 2.5 years selling Ford New Holland in Case IH parts.
It's a good experience.
Down there, and then they were looking for a new parts guy in Livingston, and they were paying like $3.50 an hour more than Billings was. And I'm like,
I'm going to do that.
I'll do that.
Okay, so this brings me to something. I really, really want to break the length record with you.
Okay.
I really want to. We're at 1 hour and 27 minutes right now.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the tractor stuff because shout out to Bryce and Skylar, who both work at Churchill Equipment.
Yeah.
My cousins. So there's this time growing up at Bethel CRC up on the hill of churches.
Yep.
Our pastor was preaching and he had this little aside and he goes, "Oh, the best thing is this, the best thing is that, the best tractor is green." And one of the owners of Churchill Equipment goes, "White."
What?
They were selling whites. Well, now they're selling green tractors. They're selling
fence.
Fence, yeah.
Selling fence.
So, but there's some interesting stuff. My brother Caleb gets into the history of these places. And, fence are a German tractor, right?
I believe so.
I don't know.
They may not be German, but they're definitely European.
Now let me look. So we're getting into some ag stuff here. Where are they made?
We're gonna Google it. We're gonna
ask. We're Googling it. We're asking. Marktoberfurt, Germany.
Oh. Okay.
Hello, Fiona. Anyway, so all these, something that I didn't realize, that Case IH has been bought and sold a few times.
Several times, yes.
Okay. From what I understand, and this is from Martin Kim, who you probably know.
I do.
He's a green tractor guy. He says if John Deere has never been sold.
Never been bought, sold. It's been the same companies from the get-go.
Tell me about that.
It's been the same company from the get-go. I mean, going back to, John Deere started it. They started off making a plow, and that was, they made a really, really good plow, and it took off, and it's just been the same. It's been the same company it hasn't been, like Ford New Holland. New Holland bought the Ford factory in Europe to make tractors originally. CNH, which is an Italian company, bought Case IH and Ford New Holland. I'm not 100% sure about your White, your Massey Ferguson. I'm not as
White turned into Agco.
Yeah, and Agco owns a lot of those brands.
Yeah. So the point is John Deere's been the same deal. It was kind of, one credit to Ford, at least on the automotive side, is they didn't take bailout money back in the Obama administration. They didn't. So that was kind of cool. But like Chrysler's owned by an Italian,
it's essentially Fiat
conglomerate, right?
Yeah, conglomerate.
So
of sorts.
You're right. John Deere, I looked up about.deere.com. John Deere was a blacksmith who developed the first commercially successful self-scouring steel plow in 1837.
Yep.
Founded the company that still bears his name. So this has stayed...
It stayed the same company.
Obviously bigger, and we could get into the controversy about having to plug tractors into computers and all that stuff and self-servicing and,
Yeah, the right to repair.
Yeah, right to repair. There you go. So, it's just kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, and we got... I would be remiss if I didn't say that there isn't a brand out there that doesn't in some way, shape, or form want you to come back to them to service your tractor.
Yeah.
The biggest reason why Deere is the face of that is because Deere is the biggest. Everybody... Deere has become as much a brand as it has a line, a tractor line, a machinery line.
Sell a lot of hats.
Sell a lot of hats, sell a lot of T-shirts. It's a very...
Toys.
Yep, toys, very recognizable name. So John Deere has become the face of this right to repair.
So talk about that. Talk about the right to repair controversy and that whole deal.
Yep. Well, right to repair, if you're unfamiliar with it, is basically farmers are I don't know if it's suing the government or screaming about all of this technological advancement and how it's making it harder for farmers to work on their equipment. An old 40-20 or a 4430, they were largely mechanical.
Types of tractors.
Yeah, types of tractors. Sorry, I'm getting off.
Okay.
I'm getting
I can
off
help.
In the weeds
I
here.
interpret.
I'm giving Ruben a big thumbs up here. They were largely mechanical, and what was electronic on them was just a series of switches and wires.
Yeah,
so
analog.
Analog, yes, that's the word I was looking for. So fixing them involved, I've got a fuel leak, I've got to replace these washers, or I just need new injectors, or my blower doesn't work, it's a switch, or it's a broken wire. It was relatively easy to repair. The problem is the new modern tractors, and this would go pretty much for every brand out there, is they're getting more and more technologically advanced. You've got like CAN bus systems that are more and more difficult to repair. And as a result, on the dealership side, it's getting more and more expensive to buy the machinery that it takes to work on them.
Yeah, like plug a diagnostic computer in and all that.
Yeah, like full disclosure, from a dealership perspective, we have to buy... As a dealership, we buy EDLs, electronic data links, and then we have to pay to have the software on every single technician computer, and that's a separate fee, and it just adds up. The dealership is paying a lot of money to be able to work on these tractors, and the farmers out there are getting annoyed that they have to take it to a dealer to get worked on. They want to be able to work on it themselves, much like you would a car.
Which no one works on their own cars anymore.
Yeah, very few people work on their own.
Very few.
You may get somebody who decides to change the ball joints on their truck or something mechanical. But when it comes to something electronic, generally you have to take it to a dealer because the dealer has the better software. Dealer, like a GM dealer, I believe, has what they call Tech 2 software that isn't available unless you're a dealer. Now, you can get a power programmer, you can get a code reader to tell what's wrong with it, but in order to really go in and dig deep, you have to have that Tech 2.
Yeah.
And that's the same way with Deere. You can look at codes all day long, but to get deeper into it, you need that specific software.
Oh, yeah.
And there was, if memory serves, and don't, I'm just I'm just going off memory here. There were a group of farmers that were, they were tired of taking their machinery into the dealership and wanted to be able to fix it themselves, which I would support. If you want to fix your own tractor, by all means, fix your own tractor. I fix my own vehicles. I service my own truck. If something goes wrong with it, I'm gonna put my scan tool on it, which is, not a full on Tech 2 scan tool. It's just hey, this is what the code is. This is what the code means, and I can decide whether I want to work on it or not.
Yeah.
That's all they're asking for, and I fully support that. But from the dealership side, it takes a lot of money for the dealership to be able to. It takes a lot of money the dealership has to put out in order to be able to do that from the dealership perspective.
Well, and it kind of goes back to the business element of anything.
Yeah.
I can even just break it down to my part-time musician job. I went and bought a couple new things that were a little bit pricey because I needed something to do something different.
Yeah.
And that goes back into the business. So when you subtract however many thousands of dollars of expenses, hopefully you're still making money. But it's the margins are pretty slim from what I understand.
Yes. The margins are pretty slim, especially when it comes to the technological stuff. I understand farmers and ranchers. You're trying to make a living, and we fully support that. 100%.
Of course.
120% of the time. I would not ever tell you we're not here for you.
Yeah.
We do the best we can to help you out when you need us. But we're also a business trying to make a living ourselves, much like you are on the family farm.
Yeah, you've got employees. I mean, or in the family farm's case, it's your
kids or your grandkids or cousin Billy or whoever.
Yeah. And the margins are slim everywhere.
Yeah, they're slim everywhere.
And I probably any corporation at the top level, they want to make money for shareholders, and there's that whole deal. We don't need to get into.
That's corporate. And John Deere as a dealership, John Deere is there's some things that we don't have a choice to do.
Yeah.
We have to do, like, for example, we are in Belgrade and in our Conrad location, we are trying out a new phone system. From an employee perspective, it's not gone well. From you're calling into the dealership perspective, it's a change, and it may not necessarily be a good one. You're greeted with, these calls are recorded, and
they start hearing an automated voice.
Yeah, automated voice
torques them off,
and it sets people on the defensive, and rightfully so. When I'm calling to, if I call into Wrestler or wherever, instead of hearing, hey, thanks for calling Wrestler, how can I direct your call?
Thank you for calling Wrestler Chevrolet.
Yeah.
We are very happy to hear from you. Yeah. Please wait and hear this list of options.
Yes. And
makes you mad.
And that was one of the things that I actually appreciate about Frontline Ag is before this phone switch out, we still had somebody answering the phone.
Yeah.
We still had you're instead of being greeted by press 1 for parts, press 2 for service, you're greeted by, hi, thanks for calling Frontline Ag. How can I direct your call?
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. I mean, we live in a technological world, and I understand, it may be more cost effective to have it, automated.
Yeah.
But that was something that we still did. But this new system is sort of a hodgepodge of automated and not automated.
So farmers, I know it's hard. You're in a line of work where you have to be patient. A lot of you are subject, like my dad, to the rains and the weather. And like, did you hear that story about that dude, those dudes in Billings that just got the heck hailed out of them? I just watched it. Oh,
like over in Shepherd, they got 8 inches of hail a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, just wrecked everything. Felt so bad.
Crops basically gone.
Well, and those are things. I mean, those are things that would contribute to the frustration of a farmer, and it's like, I mean, you've dealt with some stuff.
Oh yeah.
But they're all there to help people. You're all there to help people. Everyone I run into there, they want to help you. Everyone's happier if you get helped.
Yeah.
Right. And
we want to help you out. We want to get you back in the field so that you can go back to what you do.
Yeah. Because when you're going back to what you do, you're not in anyone else's hair.
But I got cussed at last week because a customer told me that all the sickles are the same. Well, they're all the same. No, they're not. Well, bleep, 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 bleep.
That'd be
bleep,
like
bleep,
saying all the tires are the same.
Yeah.
I mean, no, they're not.
Yeah. I could walk to the shelf and point out 3 different sickles just on what I stock.
Yeah.
But then to not have the common decency to talk to me in a professional or at least a civilized manner to start cussing at me, I'm like, the kicker is that after that conversation on the phone, I've got to come out of my office and deal with somebody at the counter in a professional manner. When
maybe also frustrated.
When I've just been cussed out.
Yeah. So I guess Christians, especially those of you in the agrarian archipelago, just be nice. Understand. I think it's, I forget who I said it to.
You do catch more flies with honey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always tell people, don't be mean to the McDonald's guy. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of power over you in that transaction.
And it's funny because I've been this way for years because of what I do for a living. It has got to be something horribly, horribly egregious for me to come unglued at like somebody at Lowe's or Walmart or somebody where I am on the other side of the counter.
Well, I think you'd probably resonate with this. When someone clearly doesn't care and disrespects me, that does set me off.
That I would agree with that.
You don't care. You don't care about me. You don't care about your job. You don't want to help me. And I get it. Like working at Walmart ain't fun. But I used to tell the gals at Murdoch's when I worked in the clothing section there, which was interesting. I would say this job is like being stuck on an elevator. You can have fun on the elevator, try and play some games, maybe tell some stories, or you can just be miserable. But whether you like it or not, you're stuck here for 8 hours.
Yeah, you're here for 8 hours.
Whether you're closing or opening or whatever, you might as well just be nice to people because it's going to make it better for you and better for them. The other thing I wanted to say before we sign off, or just touch on very briefly was, and actually we have totally crushed the length record. I'm scrolling through episodes. There's an hour and 27, hour 24, hour 27, just hour 28. I think James broke it then. This one's hour and 41.
Nothing wrong with that.
Length record broken.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but you're on call. I didn't realize that. You guys take turns being on call.
Yeah, we take turns. Generally, the way we do it at Frontline Ag is during the summertime, usually from early May through, it's generally mid to late October.
Yeah.
We're open 7:30 to 5:30, so we have some sort of extended hours.
Yeah.
And then whoever is scheduled to work that coming Saturday carries an on-call phone.
Yep.
And you have an emergency on a Saturday at 6:00, give us a call. We'll try to get you taken care of as best we can. I have actually sent customers to our Conrad store because they had a complete combine final drive.
I think that was my cousin.
That we didn't.
Or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. Or they sent a family member to go get it and then come back.
Yes. And there have been times when I sent somebody to Havre last summer for the wrong parts, and that crushed me.
Yeah,
I was so. It took me. I don't want to say it took me a while to get over it, but I still think about that. I'm like, that was a stupid mistake. How could I have done that? I am so sorry, Brad. I really am.
Shout out to Brad.
That's
the cousin.
That's the cousin.
I don't think they were mad. He's a pretty patient guy.
No, and in talking to his sister Caitlin, it kind of sounded like it was probably a good thing that he had to go to have her for the wrong part.
Go for it. You never know. Sometimes you got to go for a drive.
Well, in modern tractors, if I don't have a serial number, I'm kind of guessing.
Yeah.
And sometimes my guesses are right, and sometimes my guesses are wrong. But
doing your best.
Doing my best.
Doing our best. Yeah. I mean, I have that. With preaching and stuff, where people ask me a question, here's what I think it is. Mm-hmm. Let me do some digging.
Yep.
But we've all had mistakes. I mean,
yeah.
I've had times where I'll say something to somebody and I'll go, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Or that's just how things go.
And I have situations where, as the manager, I'm responsible for more things to make sure that the department, runs fluidly and as efficiently as it possibly can. But that means that there's sometimes I have a deadline and, I'm pushing a deadline, but somebody's calling in because they need some parts and I answer that phone call. I'm sorry to say I may not be the most cheerful person.
Yeah.
But I am answering that phone call and I am trying to get you taken care of.
Yep.
But I also have to get next day air orders placed because otherwise there are a lot of farmers that are really going to be pissed at me.
Yeah. That's stressful. It's so it is kind of interesting. I don't know, for us, what would you say, the partsmen is, whether it be Churchill equipment or my dad and brother have a couple red tractors. You're going to have to talk to Caleb, see what happens. But anyway, our homies at Churchill equipment, they're always like the legends of, he got the part and he figured, so you're the legend, I'm sure you've had more positive. More positive than negative, though.
I did that, not to toot my own horn, but I live the farthest east out of any of the employees at the Belgrade Frontline Ag.
Yeah.
I actually live in Park County. And yesterday we had a customer, one of my people was talking to a customer who needed a part for his Moco. It was a coupler on the flail for an impeller conditioner on a Moco. Computer said we had it. We receipted one. We got one from Deere back in November of last year. I'll be darned if we could find it.
Oh, man.
Went to the bin, nowhere. Check all the bins around it, nowhere. No idea where this thing went. Guy came down from Helena to he's there like, well, hey, where's this part? I'm sorry, we can't find it. But Livingston had one. And I met somebody from the Livingston store to swap parts just so this guy could get his part and get going again. He's like, it's not a big deal if I lose 12 hours of baling or cutting, but if I can't lose multiple days. I'm like, well, let me call Livingston, see if they've got somebody that can meet me. And I did. I met him at 5:30 at the exit right below my house and got parts, and he was there at 8 o'clock this morning.
That's kind of rewarding, though, huh?
And he was there at 8 o'clock this morning. He got his part, and he walked out the door happy. And that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to help you out as best I can.
Yeah.
There are some instances, there's some ways in which, as a dealership and as a manager, my hands are kind of tied. I wish I could stock everything that anybody would ever need.
Just have it.
Yeah. But I can't. I'm limited by space. I'm limited by, when we order it, we have to pay John Deere for it, whether we sold it or not.
Yeah.
There's other constraints there. I really do wish I could stock anything that everybody would ever need. I love being able to hey, I need this part for my 568 round baler. Oh, we have that. Yeah. I got that. Really? You guys have got it? Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Here it is. And they walk out, they get to go back to baling, and I get to help them out.
But it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. When you first became the worship leader at Bozeman, I was like, yeah, he's the parts guy at John Deere. I told somebody, like a farm, oh, he's the parts guy. Oh, yeah, well, we know Jared. They were all cool. Anyway, so if we better wrap up. It's going to be an hour and 40 something. It's great. If you want to see Jared lead some worship and hang out at a nice little church, come to Bozeman CRC
10 o'clock
every
Sunday
Sunday at 10 o'clock, unless we're doing a hymn Sunday or they're off. They're off about every 2 months, like me.
About once every 2 months or so.
But you do a great job. You do a great job as a parts man. Great job as a worship guy. You're a great friend. Jared cares about you, folks. So when you go into Frontline Ag, just be nice. I mean, most people are nice.
Most people are, yes.
Yeah. So before I sign off, I gotta just say this, because there's always people that ask me, when are you playing? Oh, blah, 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 blah. So I'm playing tonight at the Cowboys Lodge and Grill. It's June 27. I'm playing the 4th of July down there. I'm playing July 11, July 14, July 25, August 14, August 28, September 4. So there's a lot of dates. Anyway,
are they all
you want to come
Gardner?
see me? Yeah, all of them.
All of them in Gardner? Oh, that's a lot.
It's my home away from home. I was telling Jen from the Cowboys, I am the Siegfried and Roy of Gardner this It's just a residency that I've got going. But yeah, if you want to see Jared, come visit us at Bozeman CRC. Go visit him at Frontline Egg. You could stop in and say hi and
Unless I'm pushing a deadline, I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. And then you say, I am pushing a deadline right now.
I gotta get order. I got like 5 minutes to get orders in. If you want to sit tight for a second, let me just do this quick and I'll be back.
Oh, see, you're in parts mode right now. All right. Jared, thanks for being on. It's been really fun. Yeah. We'll do a part 2 sometime down the road.
Anytime. Yeah. I got more stories.
Oh, yeah. Okay, folks, thank you for joining me on the Rubecast. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I used to say I would do this whether anyone listened or not, but now I'm thinking I don't think I would do this if people didn't listen. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.